All right, people, we are the cricket podcast that keeps giving. It's New Year's Eve. I'm in studio recording. I'm joined virtually by Jelisa Apps, who's in between news bulletins. Jelisa, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Obviously, I'm having an absolute ripping New Year's Eve.
Well, Paul's out at a party somewhere living his
Oh,
best
he's got a
life.
better social life than both of us.
Yeah, I haven't been invited anywhere. It's a bit weird. My family's away, but yep. Look, I watched the New Year's Eve Big Bash game. I record this podcast and turn in early and get ready for the fourth test.
You've got
Yeah, I'm going
Charlie
to
the
behave
cat.
myself. That's it. Me and Charlie are going to have a great night. But yeah, I wanted to jump on because obviously it's been really difficult to try and tee up my schedule, your schedule, and Paul's. And a lot of people are saying that I'm ostracizing you from the podcast, and
They are not.
I. A lot of people have said that I've maybe driven a wedge between you and the podcast. Well, I just want to make it clear that's not happening. Jaleesa has been as busy as all of us, but probably a little busier than Paul and I at the moment. How are you coping? Breakfast radio in
Yeah,
the morning, news at night.
yeah. It's been a bit of a tough one. I think because I didn't know that I was doing Perth news, which finishes by the time we wrap up here. It's like 10 o'clock. So I don't get home till like 10:30, and then my alarm goes off at 3:30. So I'm only in my house for about 5 hours a day at the moment. So it's been a tough week. I hate saying it's been a tough week because I'm so lucky with the job that I do, and it's such a privilege, and I don't want to whinge about it at all. I'm very, very lucky, but I won't lie, I'm a little bit tired.
Yeah, just you're allowed to be tired. Definitely. Look, I wanted to jump on and sort of reflect on the year. I also listened to your interview with Malcolm Conn this morning about Justin Langer
Mm.
on the radio. There's been a ton of cricket news. So before we get into my reflections on 2021, tell me, when you heard the news, Travis Head was ruled out of the fourth test. Uh, what did you think?
I just felt like it was inevitable that somebody was going to get it in the Australian camp. And right now, we're actually hearing that Marcus Harris has stayed in Melbourne too. So he is potentially, I don't know, a close contact, or perhaps they're waiting for another test back from him. So he has stayed in Melbourne. That's confirmed. Um, so what that means for his playing future at Sydney, we're not sure yet. But I just felt like it was inevitable. I felt like at some point, coronavirus and COVID is spreading so rapidly that, especially when you started to get people who had been around the team start to get it, I felt like there was probably no way that was going to be avoided for the whole series.
Yeah, and how can the whole Australian cricket team not be close contacts of Travis Head? I mean, surely in the celebrations after securing the Ashes, they were all sharing beers and, maybe got a little bit loose with social distancing. I don't know. But, I mean, we could have a situation where most of the Australian team is rubbed out in the next week. I mean, the Sydney Test doesn't start till the 5th. And the Cricket Australia have brought in, Inglis, Mitch Marsh, Nick Maddinson, if you're Trent Copeland, I'd take your whites to the ground on the first day of the SCG test because you might be playing,
Yeah,
buddy.
this this is completely correct. Like, I find it really bizarre how they're not close contacts, because I guess it's more to do not with Cricket Australia, just with the ambiguity that we've seen around close contacts in the past couple of weeks in general. There's been such confusion, particularly in New South Wales, about who's a close contact, who's not. And then you had Brad Hazard, before these new close contact definitions were released, you had Brad Hazard in the paper saying, well, no, none of the cricketers, if one of the other ones got it, none of the others would have to be forced to isolate. And that was really confusing because that was before the close contact changes. And I was sitting there like, well, your website doesn't say that. And I actually I was like, what is a close contact? So I went to New South Wales website, and it said a close contact is anyone who's been near anyone with COVID. Well, what a great wow, clear as mud.
So
So
the whole Australian team is a close contact
the
then.
whole Australia team, but I don't think they will be all deemed to be close contacts. I think it'll be maybe dependent on who has been, maybe, like, I don't think they share rooms or anything, like the NRL or other sports. So maybe they'll escape with just their family being close contacts. But I can't see this being the last positive COVID test that we
Yeah.
have out of the camp.
Either can I. And it kind of feels like now they're just going to play the Ashes because they have to for the TV
Yeah,
rights and everything. Because the series is done, England are a mess. We're going to probably not have our best side out there. So even if England sneaks a win or two, it's not going to mean much because we could have half our side out. So yeah, I think it's going to be a bit of fun. I want fun now, so I reckon the selectors need to go all in. Like I'd pick
I
Matthew
agree.
Wade in Hobart. Bring back Peter Siddle, do all sorts of crazy stuff and just
Maxwell
make it a
keep
bit of
and
fun.
make Paul happy.
Maxwell, absolutely. Maxwell, keep captain, open the batting. It wouldn't be out of the question of bringing Tim Payne back for the Hobart Test, just as like a bit of a farewell. Why not?
Bit
I mean,
soon. It's a bit
it
soon.
is a bit soon, but also if he's one of the only cricketers still standing on the Apple Isle that can play, he could get in there. So yeah, I
I've
just
got a
think we
better
should
idea.
enjoy it. Yeah. Who
Cancel
else?
the Ashes, put everyone in the Big Bash.
Yeah. Well, that's one idea. I mean, I thought you could just wheel out Mitch Johnson and get him to stare at the English, and they'd run away anyway. Brett Lee looked good against his son. On the clip the other day, so he can still wang a few.
Yeah,
But yeah, you mentioned the Big Bash. I mean, that's a mess too. So we've got
that's a
15
mess.
stars.
I mean, they didn't even confirm the game was going ahead until I think it was like 20
5:30.
minutes. 5:30
5:30.
was it? Yeah,
Yeah,
I thought it was about 20
an
to
hour
6
and
5. So it was
an
about,
hour
yeah,
before the
5:30.
toss.
So um that's insane. Like, you to make those decisions, I mean, I don't begrudge them. I just mean to make those decisions so close to a game, it's just so difficult for everybody. Yeah, so it's surprising to
Mm.
see everything, in such chaos at the moment.
Yeah, what
And
was it?
in all
Seven
sports
star.
too.
Yeah, 7 stars players. I know the A League's a mess too, but 7 stars players, 8 staff. Thunder at least 3 players, maybe 4. I mean, Jelisa, I think they have to go into a bubble if they want to finish the tournament because
I
there's going to be
I
no one
think it's
left.
past that. I think the way that the way that the sport is, and the way that more we're handling it as a society at the moment, I don't think you could justify putting them in a bubble, because who are you protecting? Like, just the sport going ahead. What they'll have to do is just start looking at NFL and NBA in America, and they're just forging on. They've lost massive superstars out of, there's 2 quarterbacks in one team are gone, so that really decimates their chances. But it just means you've got to forge on, and you've got to, unfortunately, the team with the most depth will overcome it.
Yeah, but it doesn't look like the Stars will be even able to play for the next couple of days. So it's going to be a mess. You're right. If they forge ahead, then they're going to have to try and make up games. Maybe they have to just take a few cancellations on the chin and not even try and make them up. I mean, I don't know. But you say forge ahead. Where are they just going to start going to grade cricket and just, as I said, just pull? It could just be
Just pull them in.
roll up with your cricket gear and try out for the Big Bash.
Here's anyone going to the Big Bash, take your cricket gear.
Absolutely. I went the
That's
other
our
night.
advice.
Next time I go, I'll take my whites. I mean, I
Yeah, do
bowl,
it.
handy offies. Um,
Be that one
yeah,
person in the crowd that dresses full, ready to
full
get on.
white. Well, in magenta, get the full kit on.
Yeah.
And just if it's just head ruled out, who would you have in to replace him? Kawaja, Maddenson, Mitch
Um,
Marsh.
if it's just head, I think you've got to give Kawaja a go. But now, if it's head and potentially Harris, I would give Kawaja and Marsh,
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
because I would have always
I
gone
think
with
Sean Marsh has a
Kawaja.
chance at playing actually. So
Sorry.
I mean, I think Sean Marsh has a chance at playing in the fifth
Oh, Mitch
test.
Marsh he was with the side today and
Mm,
very
yeah,
comfortable. So
it could be a return
I
of the
would have
Marsh
gone
boys.
Kawaja to open anyway. So Kawaja, and then I'd put Mitch Marsh down the order.
Yeah. All right, so that's all the news of the day. Let's look back on 2021 because it's New Year's Eve. We're here all alone, and I sort of was
All
asked.
by myself.
Beautiful singing. I was asked actually.
Don't.
I went on the same radio station you do breakfast radio on a bit later on, and I was asked to think about the year, and
SEN.
then they never asked me the question. So I've got all these So this is fresh material. I think if you look at the year as a whole, Australian cricket, 9 months of it was shithouse. And then the last 3 months has saved Australian cricket from having a pretty down year. It starts
Yeah.
losing to India. Our IPL players get stuck in the Maldives. So does, Gilly, all our greatest stars get stuck over there. Then we go to the West Indies and Bangladesh, get hammered. Then we're rolling into the World Cup. The coach is under fire. Warner's under fire. And then the whole thing turns around. I mean, incredible comeback year.
Yeah, it is amazing. And it's interesting now when you're looking at it in the light of should Justin Langer keep his job, because how quickly things change. Because I think a couple of months ago, he probably had no chance of keeping his job. And now that's all changed because you won an Ashes and a World Cup. Well, what more do you want him to do, really? So it's interesting in the context of the year.
Oh, I've got a nugget on that, Jelisa.
Sorry?
I've got a nugget on that. Pete Lawler, the journalist from the Australian, was interviewed on SEN, and they asked him, what headline will you be writing in 2022? And he said, I'll be writing about the new Australian coach. Now, if that's come from Lawler, I'm telling you, you can almost take it to the bank that Lang is gone.
Well, yeah, I think that's definitely the feeling around, and that was basically what Malcolm was saying as well. Like he doesn't think that he's going to keep his job, and I think the most telling thing was to have Nick Hockley not really give a resounding endorsement the other day, but even more telling to that was Pat Cummins, because straight after they'd won the game, and he was asked the question, it was a really easy opportunity to maybe not even say yes, he should keep his job, but at least give him some glowing feedback. And he really chose his words very deliberately and didn't do that. He said, well, we'll have to address it at the time, and those are decisions to come down the track. It was very telling, I think, from someone who wouldn't normally just say something controversial for the sake of it.
Yeah, I read all that very differently.
Did you?
To me, Cummins and the head of high performance, Ben Oliver, was doing press conferences today, and they've all been, media trained to say we're not going to talk about Langer's contract until the end of the season. And I kind of think that's what Cummins was trying to say, but he's too polite. Like he should have just said, "Mate, I'm not talking about that now."
But you didn't have to. But you didn't have to talk about it. You could have just
No, but if
said,
he says, I love JL, the headline is Cummins backs Langer. And all of a sudden, Cummins is against some of the players. So I think Cummins was in a tough spot.
no,
I
the
mean,
players are smarter than that. When they read headlines, they know, well, this has been, if they saw Cummins backs Langer, they don't sit there and think Cummins backs Langer. They know, talking to Cummins, he's like, yeah, I was asked a question and this is how I answered it. Or they can read the quote in full and they know themselves the way that they've said things, and then there's a headline out of it. They're not silly. They know, like, they've got more in tune with each other than they do with. They're not taking things from the media and then turning it.
yeah, fair enough. I just think that they mean what they say they're going to deal with at the end of summer. And maybe when the summer started, things weren't locked in. And now, well, what we just discussed, the World Cup win and the Ashes, means he should get the job again. But let's go back to the beginning of the year. So it starts, Australia lose to India. Almost a year later. How do you reflect on that, Jelisa?
Oh, still really badly. But also, the biggest reflection I have taken out of that, having watched this test series, was how much I enjoyed the last one. Because I actually
Interesting.
haven't really, I've enjoyed Australia winning, and I've enjoyed seeing the performances, and I've enjoyed Pat Cummins just growing into that role, but I haven't enjoyed it as competitive cricket because it hasn't been. It's been really pathetic. And it's that England haven't put up a fight. And you and I both thought we were taking England too lightly. I can't believe that we ever thought that now, having looked at the way that they've played, because it was just a pathetic, no guts and
Mm.
no conviction in who they were even selecting
And that
or
Indian team
backing,
was
and
the
then
opposite. That
blaming
Indian
the
team was the opposite.
toss.
Yeah. And
Like,
that Indian team was the opposite. They would lost
opposite.
so many players and they still battled on and won the series.
Total opposite. At the end of at the Gabba, they had the absolute CD team going in, and still had all this belief that they were going to roll Australia at the Gabba. Like, that is some confidence, and it came off for them. So it was one of the most, actually looking back on it, it's probably one of the most enjoyable test series that I think we've seen since maybe 2010, back when I can remember, really.
Mm. I think I sort of reflect on it, thinking sort of Tim Payne had a bit of a shocker at the back end, and
Yeah.
I've listened to many cricket experts and Test players talk about that they don't think wicket keepers should be long-term Test captains because it's too draining. And people doubt all these people. People doubted Ian Healy when he said it. People doubted Adam Gilchrist. But I think actually we saw at the end of the 2019 Ashes with that terrible, well, actually a few decisions Payne made that almost cost us the series. And at the end of that Indian series, that you don't want a Test wicketkeeper as captain because they're so drained by the end of a long series. And, again, we just kind of let a series through our fingers. India played well, but we dropped catches. We got our team wrong. Payne had
Our
a shocker at the
fielding has
SCG.
vastly improved. Like, our fielding is out of sight compared to what it was last year. And I really honestly believe that the last test, so much had to do with how tense Tim Payne was, that it made everybody else tense. And that's one thing I think that Paddy Cummins really brings, is just this quality of calmness and stillness. But it'll be really interesting to see how he goes when Australia are inevitably under pressure.
You're right. When they've been in the field a day and a half and they can't get any wickets, and he's bowled 25 overs, absolutely. So it was about, not long after that series that the first report started to surface about Justin Langer, and that's really been the sort of storyline that's underpinned the Australian cricket team. But there was the IPL debacle where our best players chose the IPL during a COVID crisis, and then were stuck there, and the commentators, and they chose that over the national side because there was a tour to the West Indies and Bangladesh where they didn't go on. So I don't know, it leaves a bit of a poor taste in my mouth in the end. I know we won the World Cup, but the whole thing was a bit of a mess.
I don't think you can begrudge anyone in such a small time frame to go and earn money, because their career could be over literally at any point. And that's what people always talk about athletes. Oh, they're paid so much. And it's like, yeah, but they actually don't have anything once they finish. Cricketers maybe are a little different. They sort of go into more coaching roles and things like that. Footballers end up with nothing, like absolutely nothing.
Yeah, yeah. I don't begrudge them.
I don't begrudge them for going over there, and no one could have predicted that. But I still, even though we won the World Cup, I'm still really strong in my conviction that I think it should be treated as a separate sport. Separate selectors, separate coach, separate players.
Yeah, you're right, and that was really where the team started to turn around. No one gave the Aussies a chance at winning the World Cup. No one, and they go there, and not only did they win, but it was full of great stories, and that continued in the Ashes. But you think about Mitch Marsh, the much maligned Mitch Marsh, Matty Wade was on a building site a few years ago, almost out of international cricket. Smashes us to the final. David Warner, after being dumped by his IPL club. I mean, that was such a great, couple of weeks for Australian cricket.
It was amazing, and it was like completely unexpected from my point of view. I just didn't think they'd had enough time together as a team in the lead up, and all those performances had been so up and down. But it was amazing to win the World Cup, and I actually picked that. We had to pick our story of the year here, and I picked that as the story of the year because I just didn't think it was going to happen.
Yeah, same. I mean, anyone that's listened to my podcast knows I didn't think it was going to happen, or this podcast. But look, I also think, it's where we started to see the influence of George Bailey. So he came on as a selector in the middle of the year, and he's bubbling away. And then we really start to see him build his team. And the features Bailey's brought to the team are very clear communication and a pretty clear pecking order. So players roughly know where they stand. And I think that's actually really helped. I didn't agree with every decision, but I think it's helped the players go out there and play a bit freer.
Yeah, true. I think also like JL just letting up a little bit after they had those honesty sessions. He's obviously pulled back a little bit since then, and everyone seems a lot more relaxed.
He stopped bashing Langer for 5 minutes.
I'm not bashing Langer. I think that has been a change. If he can keep that going, then keep him on as coach. But
Mm,
who
yeah.
knows?
So, yeah, but Bailey's a cool head as well, and I'm sure he could have some nice chats with Langer. So we win the World Cup. You're thinking Australian cricket, this is going to be a golden summer, going to go into the Ashes. 5 days later, or about that, Payne's out of the team, out of cricket, resigned as captain amidst a scandal that we don't need to relive. But I have to say, that seemed to go away really quickly. Like,
Remarkably.
as soon as Stark took that wicket at the Gabba, bang, who's Tim Payne?
I know it went away remarkably quickly. I don't even think the Barmy Army liked it. I thought they would really have a field day with it. I just thought there'd be a lot of niggle about that. But I think also the fact that Alex Carey performed so well that it kind of meant that, oh, this was actually like a silver lining. So I think if you had a wicketkeeper come in who had just been thrown into the role, and Alex Carey had every right to be terrible because he'd just been completely thrown in. But for Alex Carey to have performed so well, there were so many other storylines going on that got completely buried, and largely has been totally buried. I've barely heard it mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, Cummins takes the job. And I mean, I sort of, we're smashing a 3-0. And what I mean about beautiful stories is, I mean,
Hey, Manners,
you
I'm
look at,
just to let you know, I've only got about like 4 minutes before I've got to go back
oh,
on,
yeah,
or probably
we're
about
going to,
6 minutes actually.
we'll
But
wrap
go
it
on.
up now then. No, we'll wrap
No,
it up. So,
I've still
yeah,
got 6 minutes, so we still got a little bit of time.
good. So this year ends with just beautiful stories. Cummins seems meant to lead. Smith gets a chance for redemption in the second test.
Yeah.
Travis Head comes back into the team and scores 150. Warner, sort of expunges the demons from the last Ashes. Scotty Boland, the nicest guy in Australian cricket, takes 6 for 7 in front of his home fans.
And
I
then
mean,
potentially won't play.
exactly. So, for me, a crazy year for Australian cricket because 9 months of it, as I said, was pretty rubbish, and then it ended in glory.
It ended in like such good storylines. Like, yeah, as you mentioned, like Bolden, like who could have predicted that? The person I feel really sorry for that everyone's forgotten about is poor Nisa
Yeah,
again. It's all been will be Jai Richardson or Boland, and I'm like,
and
don't
they
forget about Nisa.
and he got a wicket off his second or third ball in Test cricket or something, didn't he? So
I
he
know
had a
he performed
wonderful night.
well.
Absolutely. So,
He's just the
uh,
most unlucky guy.
Justin Langer said when he wanted to, when he took the team over, he wanted to make Australia proud of this team. And I think this is the proudest Australia has been of their cricket team in a
I,
long time.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, and I'm just so happy with the captaincy of Pat Cummins and how complimentary him and Steve Smith are to each other. Like, I just think captaincy is so multifaceted now. Back in the 90s, it would have just been you had to worry about on the field. Now you've got to worry about the media and so many other things. I think that's what Pat does really, really well. And maybe Steve wasn't always totally comfortable with. I think he always handled it well, but he never looked like he enjoyed it or was comfortable with it, whereas Pat actually looks like he enjoys it. So
Mm,
I think that it's been a really um, it's been a really really nice to see Pat almost thrown into that role, but at the most perfect time when he was groomed and ready to go.
yeah. So all's well that ends well. That's the feeling I'm getting for cricket in Australia this year. Jaleese,
It's a
any
good
parting?
end.
Yeah, any parting words for the listeners on New Year's Eve?
No, just to have a very safe New Year's and everyone. I know that there's a lot of anxiety for everyone at the moment about what's going on, and just get your booster and do what you can.
Well, Jaleesa, I echo those sentiments, and thank you everybody that's listened to Cricket Unfiltered in 2021. Yeah, we'll be back next year. Paul and I are actually recording on the weekend to properly dive into all this. Could be a whole new team to preview for Australia. So
Oh,
yeah, tune
there
in then.
actually could be.
Exactly,
Yeah,
can't wait.
and also I do also want to say just thank you to everybody who listens to us and who comments and interacts and just writes really nice things, because we obviously like do it because we really enjoy it, but when you see someone write back to you like, oh my goodness, people listen and actually enjoy what we have to say, and it's really lovely. And also it's just been nice to meet a lot of people through the podcast, like people that I now follow on Twitter and talk to and interact with so regularly, and also you and Paul, who I talk to all the time now. It's just been such a pleasure. I don't think in any other world but cricket would have brought us together, and I'm so grateful for that.
You're gonna make me cry now with that beautiful sentiment. Well,
Are you
Jelisa,
actually?
thank you. Well, it's an emotional time. Thank you,
It is.
everybody, for listening to Cricket
It's
Unfiltered.
completely true. And the
It
work
is.
that you put in, Manners, is just like the work you put in behind the scenes, the work that you put in to make sure we're always recording, that we're always putting out content, and also just always thinking of the people that actually watch it and consume it. You always say when there's some big story, we need to go live, we need to do this, and it's not self-indulgent. It's because you think we need to really provide a good content to the people who support us. So you're amazing. I'm really admire you so much.
All right. Well, on that note, Jelisa, obviously I'm your biggest fan. So thank you. Have a great. You got to go and run on the news. So thank you,
I know,
and
but
we'll
I
catch
need
up
to
soon. Happy
go.
New Year. See you in 2022.
Bye.
Bye.